Hello everyone, and welcome to the Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. Some of us experience moments that make us question everything, our surroundings, our senses, even the very nature of what's real. Sometimes it can start with a voice, faint, distant, calling out. This time it's not one you recognize, but you think they're in trouble. You follow the voice, but what you find, you could have never predicted. Sometimes it's even stranger. The voice and the messenger are one that you know, a message that shouldn't exist from a dream that feels too real. It's a warning that comes just in time from someone who shouldn't know you're in danger. Tonight we explore the stories of those who've heard, seen, and felt the inexplicable. Those who walked away with a deeper understanding that not everything around us can be explained or escaped. So, let's get started, shall we? We'd been clearing debris for most of the day. Fallen branches, bits of siding, and a few stray trash bins lodged into fences. The worst of the storm had passed, but it had left behind quite a mess. My neighbor Garrett was helping me with the last of the cleanup near the edge of our property when he paused and turned toward the woods. "You hear that?" he asked me. I didn't at first, but after a few seconds, I caught it. A voice, low and distant, calling out from the trees. Faint, but not enough to be a trick of the wind. "Help me." Garrett looked at me. I could tell we were both thinking the same thing. Someone had gotten trapped out there in the storm, maybe swept in by the floodwaters or disoriented, trying to find shelter. So we grabbed flashlights, made our way down the muddy slope that bordered the woods. But the farther we walked, the more it felt off. And that voice, well, no matter how far we walked, it never got any closer. Just kept calling out. Same tone, same pace, always just beyond reach. Eventually we came to this break in the trees where the ground dipped into a shallow ravine. That's when Garrett's flashlight flickered and died. Mine kept going, but only barely. The beam pulsed like it was struggling. Then we heard it again. It was closer now, but it was different. Not scared, but angry. Hungry, even. "Help me." It wasn't coming from ahead anymore. It was behind us. We both turned fast, expecting to see something, but there was nothing there. Just the dark stretch of woods and silent and waiting. We didn't run, not at first, but we didn't speak either. We just started moving, faster and faster, until we were out of the trees and back into the neighborhood, soaked in sweat and mud. Then we ran back to my house. Garrett was silent the whole time and eventually left. He doesn't talk about that night, not anymore. He says he didn't hear anything after all. Maybe it was just the storm messing with us, he says. But I know better. Something for sure called us out there. And I swear I've even heard it again. And there's a part of you that knows it's not real or not human, not something you can find. And I think that just makes it scarier. I think that's why Garrett won't talk about it. I'm sure some of you on here are familiar with Naked and Afraid, the show. I recently binged the XL series. Basically, naked people go out into the wilderness and try to survive with very little in the way of tools. They get to bring one item each, Sometimes they get a pot for boiling water. Most people bring machetes, fire starters, or mosquito nets, and everything else must be acquired in the wild. It sounds ridiculous, and maybe some of it is fake. I really don't know, but it's also addictive. I mean, these people are stark naked, no shoes, no nothing. But then they go out there and build shelters, collect resources, and many contestants make it all the way to the end. Sometimes that's 40 days, sometimes it's 60. Either way, it's insane. It's one of those things that makes you think, gosh, I wonder if I could do that. Well, spoiler alert, I could not. I only wanted to try for a weekend just for fun, just to see what it was like. When I got a nice secluded spot in the woods, I stripped down just like in the show. Then I took 3 steps and decided to put my shoes back on. The ground was covered in stickers, rocks, painful roots. There was just no way. When I went to sit down, the reality of what it meant to have my naked bits touching the ground set in, and I put my pants back on. At that point, it felt ridiculous to walk around topless, so I decided it was unnecessary to emulate every part of the show. Once my clothes were back on, I decided to get water from a nearby creek. It looked absolutely disgusting, even after I boiled it. There was no way that I was going to put that into my body. None. Luckily, I brought emergency bottled water and drank that instead. What's one more concession? The real challenge would be building a shelter and finding food. Now, I went into this knowing I wasn't going to kill some poor animal just so that I could pretend I was on a reality show. But there are plenty of fruits and berries in the area I visited. Theoretically, food should have been the easy part. It wasn't. I got lost. But Alicia, your phone has GPS. Yes, but I was playing a stupid game, so I left my phone at the campsite. That's how smart I am. I had been to that area before, but never ventured quite so far. Nothing looked familiar. I didn't leave any kind of trail to follow back. I kept thinking that I would find food just around the next bend, and then suddenly I was miles away from my campsite. Eventually I saw a building through the tree line and wept with joy. I had no flashlight, so I was going to be a whole different kind of screwed once it got dark. I ran to the clearing and found an old church building with a small graveyard behind it. I was very disheartened to learn that there were no people around. I searched inside the chapel and found nothing of use, just a few short rows of pews. In the daylight, it was a picturesque setting, like something out of a rustic painting, but I had a feeling that wouldn't be the case in an hour. I was relieved to see that there was a dirt road I could possibly follow to some sort of civilization. But alas, that too was a bust. I walked as far as I could, but the sun was working against me. I had to choose between going back to the church and sheltering for the night, or continuing down an unknown road into total darkness. I chose the church. By the time I made it back, the sun had completely set. The only light came from a small, starry patch in the overcast sky. The church was almost pitch black inside, so all I could do was feel for a pew and lay down. The hardwood hurt my back and my ass instantly. The thought of sleeping till morning was the only thing keeping me calm, and now that was gone too. I cried like a child. I was full on sobbing, having one of those what the fuck is wrong with me moments. I do that kind of shit all the time. I think something looks fun, so I dive in 100% without an ounce of research, and then I screw myself over. Every single time. After a few minutes, I thought my sobs were echoing. It sounded like a second person had started crying outside, but when I stopped, it stopped. The first time I thought that I was losing my mind, but after it happened a second and third time, I was sure. I wasn't hearing myself. This was from an entirely different person. I felt my way to the door and called out. No one answered, but something took a few steps closer in my direction. That's when the fear set in. There wasn't even starlight to see by. It was just black. I hadn't thought about the reasons someone would be sneaking around in the dark. It wasn't very likely that someone else just so happened to get lost on the same night. Also, without a flashlight. I didn't know what to do. I stood there frozen. I'm not sure for how long, probably only a minute or two. But then the crying suddenly started again. It was loud and mournful. It sounded like the source was standing right next to me. Imagine someone is crying on your shoulder. It was exactly that. I reached out for whoever it was. I felt like if I could just get my hands on them, they would have to explain themselves or kill me. Either way, I had to know what I was dealing with. I couldn't handle the uncertainty, but I only grabbed air. I swear I reached through the sound. There's no way I didn't at least brush against someone standing that close. Then I remembered the graveyard, and I got really scared. My dumbass not only got lost in the woods, I got stranded in a haunted church. Who the fuck does that? I ran back inside, slammed the door behind me, like it would actually help if a ghost were chasing me. I sat down right against the door and I didn't move for a long time. Once the crying stopped, it didn't start again, and I was finally able to calm down a little. Eventually, I decided to feel my way back to the pew, but when my hand found one, it felt wrong. The arms were standard pew arms, smooth wood with slight curves like you'd see in any church. As I probed further, I realized something was on top of the arm and lifted it with both hands, trying to get a feel for what it could be. I really don't know how to describe it outside of saying exactly what I think it was. It was a skeletal hand, 4 fingers, a thumb, a goddamn hand. Not a living one, of course. Whatever I held was definitely dead. When I pulled, it was like pulling on a body, and it fell toward me. I let go and jumped back, expecting to hear it hit the ground, but there was no sound at all. I wasn't brave enough to go feeling around again, so I made my way back to the door, leaned against it until there was enough sunlight to hit the road. It was absolutely the longest night of my life. Sometimes the floors would creak or there would be a sound outside, but nothing seemed to get close to me. When there was finally enough light to see my surroundings, I could confirm there was no skeleton present in the chapel, nor anything else that I could have mistaken for one. It seems like a completely normal church, and outside there was a peaceful little cemetery, no trace of the previous horrors in sight. I ended up walking down the road for over an hour before a nice old lady stopped and asked if I needed help. She took me back to my campsite where I promptly packed my things and got the hell out of there. This was years ago, back when I was working seasonal construction in a tiny desert town in Arizona. We'd rented out a beat-up double-wide for the summer, 4 of us rotating shifts, not much furniture and even less sleep. It was cheap and close to the job site, and that was all we needed. The land behind the trailer was nothing but miles of dry brush and scattered rock, all the way to the edge of the canyon. No wildlife, no wind, just stillness that settled like dust over everything. The first time I heard it, I'd just gotten off a night shift and was sitting outside smoking before crashing. It was about 4:30 in the morning. I remember because the sky was just starting to tint that pale blue. I heard what sounded like someone calling from the canyon, not yelling, but talking low and rhythmic. It was repeating something I couldn't quite make out. I assumed it was one of the guys messing around, but when I looked behind me, I could see them through the window. They were inside, still passed out on the floor. The next night I heard it again. Same time, same voice, same pattern, but it was closer. Like whoever or whatever it was had moved up from the canyon and was now in the brush somewhere behind the trailer. I asked around. One of the guys said it was probably an echo off the canyon walls or some weird acoustics thing, but he didn't come outside with me. Not once. The last night I stayed there, I made the mistake of walking out behind the trailer with a flashlight. I mainly just wanted to prove to myself that there was nothing there. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe it was really just coyotes or wind or something natural. But when I got about 30 feet into the brush, I heard it again, right behind me. Clear as day this time. It was a voice and it whispered, "We see you." I dropped the light, didn't even think, just ran, left everything behind, including my job. I never went back, and I've never heard anything like it since. Whatever it was, I don't think that was human. Before sending this, I just sent the Green Hill Estates HOA an email advising the possibility of a wolf roaming around near one of our neighborhoods. Someone needs to go out there and see what's going on in the woods, and it's definitely not going to be me and my 8-pound Pomeranian leading the investigation. I didn't say that last part in my message, but someone really does need to go sweep that forest for anything that may pose danger to the families in our community. I mean, we've got kids out here riding bikes and walking around sometimes long after sundown. I'd hate to read on the HOA update board that a youngster had been mauled in an event that could have been preventable. This all happened a few hours ago, prompting the frantic, furious typing. I'd gotten home from work, took my dog out for a short walk around 8. There's a lot of components to everything going on that I didn't mention to my HOA, because my main goal was for them to do something about it, and if I fully explained myself, it would have decreased the chances for them to believe me, and therefore decrease their urgency to act. But that's why my next stop was here, because I had to tell someone what happened, share it with potentially more open-minded in nature than the board of my HOA. No offense to them. I understand it's a community resource. They have to allocate wisely, and my claim would have been looked at like not a serious inquiry if I'd shared the details, you know? I wrote about my concern being a wolf, but I'm not sure what it was. I got Scoot on his leash and my AirPods in. The Spirit Box app was open on my phone, and I was listening to it speak random words in between reverberate noises and sounds. Nothing jumping out as anything meaningful. On most nights, that's how it goes until I get bored and switch to music to power through the final stretch of the walk. Same thing happening tonight. All I'm hearing is choppy noise, and I've already got Spotify open, scrolling, about to play Dolly Parton, when the Spirit Box app says a full sentence that I can hear clearly in my headphones. A man's voice cut through the static saying, "I'm over here." I stopped mid-step with my thumb hovering over Backwoods Barbie, and I swiped over to the Spirit Box. In the app, along with its audio capabilities, it writes out the words being transmitted through with a timestamp. And a few seconds before, I was able to confirm that it said, "I'm over here." I kept looking through the timeline because I noticed a few seconds before that it said, "Hello, hello, wait," and I must not have heard it. Scoot was pulling on the leash, but I made him wait as I intensely listened for any more intelligible words. I gave us an internal 10 count. If nothing popped up on the Spirit Box, we were going to keep walking. Counting back, a part of me was intrigued at the prospect of my $10 purchase not going to waste. But in the same aspect, I was partially praying that something would convince me the app was a hoax and I could get on with my night. Because I'll admit that I was a little spooked. But it spoke again. Same voice, now saying, "Left, closer." Scooter and I walked to the sidewalk on the other side of the street. On that side, past the sidewalk, is a grassy slope leading down to the forest area. After I'd crossed the street, the voice stopped saying left but repeated, "Closer," about 5 or 6 times. I could tell it wanted me to go further down the hill towards the trees, and I was honestly about to do it. The few small embers of excitement still burned in my heart. I hadn't had these kinds of willies in my stomach since I was a child, and each step increased the feeling. But then Scoot stopped me. He didn't follow. He stayed on the sidewalk, and when I took out my AirPods, I could hear him growling. His hair was standing up, and he was trying to move me backwards, trying to pull the leash and me back up. Finally, I retreated back up to the sidewalk. I could have easily yanked him down the hill with me, but when I looked at him, he was trembling. With one earphone out, I didn't hear the spirit box when it told me, "Don't go." But it was logged as a spoken sentence when I checked the app again on the sidewalk. Even when I got back up next to Scoots, he didn't stop growling in the direction of the hillside. And when I looked back down into the trees, I saw what he was growling at. Camouflaged at the bottom of the hill, a man walked out of the trees into the short grass. He had his hands in his pockets. He smiled at me, and he took a hand out to wave. It looked like he took a file to his teeth. They were all grinded down to a point, and they were shiny. Scoots started yipping and barking, trying to get as far away from this guy as possible, and I did too. Right when he walked out, I had that oh no feeling. But when I saw those sharp teeth, everything felt a lot more impending, if that makes sense. I was realizing in that moment that I no longer felt safe at a distance. A random guy coming from the woods is off-putting enough when I'm walking alone out there. But this guy looked, dare I say, demonic. It had to have been him that hacked my Spirit Box app. I don't know how he did it. It didn't even know that an app like that could be hacked. But I've seen a lot of those things like Flipper Z on ads. They're like small hacking device things. I don't know their capabilities. I only know that there's things on the market that can easily hack stuff. I don't know another way that something like this could be pulled off. I deleted the app right when I got home, but not before looking at the sentence log one last time and seeing a final entry that said, "Come back."
Come back.
In December, my area in Texas experienced some serious floodwaters. I know several people who lost their lives or came close to it. The floodwaters hit quickly, and to say that we aren't built for that is a bit of an understatement. My family did fine. We weren't out on the roads, which seemed to be the most dangerous place to be. Some damage to the outside of our house, some trees nearby caused some issues for a few days, but that was the worst of it. But it wasn't the weirdest of it. I can't explain what happened the morning after the worst of the floods, but I'm going to try to relay it. We were sort of trapped in our neighborhood for a couple of days due to downed trees and a flooded road. So during that time, we just went around with our other neighbors helping anyone who needed it. The second morning, the water had mostly receded, leaving behind the kind of mud that sucks your boots in when you try to walk. My husband and I were making rounds with two other neighbors when we reached the last row of houses on the far side of the loop, a stretch of homes that backed up against the thick of the woods. One of the houses there had been hit especially hard. Debris clung to the front fence, and the windows on the lower floor were blown out. And that's when we heard it. Help. It was faint but urgent, a voice definitely human, crying out from inside the house. We all froze, and then it came again. Help. Clearer this time, multiple voices maybe, begging, pleading. My stomach dropped. The four of us rushed to the door and tried it, but it was swollen shut from the water. My neighbor Tim kicked it in, and we charged inside expecting to find people trapped or hurt. But there was no one. The house was completely empty. Furniture overturned, water lines creeping up the walls, mud smeared across the floor, but no signs of life. We split up, calling out, checking closets and the upstairs rooms. Nothing. The house was dead quiet, and yet we all swore that we heard it. Not just me, all of us. Same direction, same voices. We regrouped in the living room, rattled and confused. Tim made a sort of nervous joke about sound bouncing in weird ways after a flood, but none of us really believed it. Not the way that voice had sounded so close, so desperate. I still think about that morning, about that house, about what we heard, and why, when we broke in to save them, there was nothing. Several years ago, I planned to quit my school, but divine intervention saved me and countless other lives, ones I would have tragically affected. I'm a lot older now, and I can hardly believe how passionate teenage feelings are. Everything was treated like it was the end of the world. In a sense, it was, because your world is a fishbowl, one that you're forced to exist and interact within. It's impossible not to. I won't bother listing the reasons why I was going to do it. I know now that none would have ever been good enough to justify the actions, my actions. It was all trivial shit that I'd eventually get over. But when you're neck deep in angst and basically the plankton in the high school food chain, in my head, this was the only way to be heard and for my pain to be recognized, giving back what was given to me. I had to mentally commit and put the deed day on my calendar. I planned for it to be on a Tuesday. It wasn't hard to find a firearm in my house, unlocked and unaccounted for. I selected one and made sure it fit into my backpack. I packed a second magazine, but I didn't expect my deed to go on long enough for me to need to reload. The night before, I was plagued with nightmares. I'd never had sleep paralysis before, but there were points throughout the night where I could have sworn I was awake, but the imagery I was seeing could only be explained by saying I was in dreams. My dead uncle paid me a visit that night, and I'll never forget his mutilated face. He'd taken his own life a year or so before that. Nobody was allowed to see the body except for my aunt before he was cremated, but that's how he chose to visit me that night. As I tossed and turned in bed and I woke up, in the chair that I'd set my backpack on, there was now my uncle sitting there. His cranium resembled a bloomed flower, the meat and skull folded back like petals stemming from his neck. His work shirt was stained in blood. It was the same white t-shirt that he'd always wear with a shark mechanic logo. He just sat there like a hideous statue facing me, and it brought about the same aching sadness as I had that day I found out. The apparition's gory appearance gave me chills, thinking about it later, but in that very moment, I was losing my uncle all over again, and I was able to see and feel his hurt. He disappeared when I wiped away the tears from my eyes, and my backpack was again sitting on the chair. I prayed to him when he left. I told him how much I missed him. Again, I don't know for sure if I dreamed the whole thing, but it felt real, and I knew why he came to see me. The next time I opened my eyes, I'd woken up naturally. I was pretty OCD about the clock alarm in my room. I'd probably roll over 4 or 5 times to check that little switch, make sure it was pointed on. And even though I'd checked 4 or 5 times, I'd sometimes check a 6th or 7th, just for good measure. But I woke up late that day. I urgently grabbed my alarm clock from the table, and it wasn't even plugged in. The short brown cord swung around as soon as I lifted it. My new plan was to catch everyone at lunch. I got dressed in the first clothes that I could find on the ground, and I threw my backpack on. My mom was laying on the couch when I left my room. I walked past her and she told me good morning, but didn't ask why I wasn't at school. I told her good morning and left. If my dad would have been there, he for sure would have been my first kill. I would have been doing my mom a favor by doing it, but he wasn't there. I grabbed a few quarters from the ashtray before I left so that I could take the city bus. There was a bus stop a few blocks from the school. I could just get dropped off and walk the rest of the way there. There wasn't many people on the bus when I got on, and it was easy to find a seat by myself, rows away from the other riders. I set my backpack down in between my legs, and the bus took off. I thought about my uncle. I thought about what I was about to do. I wanted someone to catch me before I went through with it. I was having an internal battle. There was an angel and a devil dueling on my shoulders, and the angel needed help. As the bus doors opened at another stop, people got off and these two kids got on. They looked identical to each other, girls, probably 7 or 8. Young kids dressed in white button-ups and blue skirts. Looked like they were from a private school. One of the girls was being pulled by the fattest iguana I've ever seen. Instead of a normal meal like crickets, it looked like its diet consisted of cake and cookies. Its long tail whipped ankles as it made its way down the aisle, tugging on the leash. When I looked up, they were both already looking at me, smiling all weird as they moved down the rows of empty seats towards me. Then one sits right next to me, and the other, with the iguana, sits in the row in front of me, turned around in the seat so that her knees are facing me. In a nutshell, our conversation went like this. I ask, "What?" They respond in sync, "Hi." Most of the things they said were like that, between them, the same words at the same time. So they say hi and I ask, "What?" again. They ask why I'm not in school. I say I woke up late and that's where I'm going. I ask why they aren't in school. And they say, "We don't need school," and giggle together. I'm like, cool, whatever, and turn toward the window. From the seat in front of me, the iguana climbs down and under the seat, and I don't notice him in between my legs until he's got a hold of my backpack. I felt a tug, and I heard the metal clang inside. When I looked down, there was an obese lizard giving one of my zipper keychains the old-fashioned death roll. I started to unzip the bag, and I went to grab it, but I'm sure that only opened the bag more, because the gun, an extra magazine, fell out onto the bus floor by my feet. The iguana continued to twist the backpack with my arm now entangled with it, and I couldn't retrieve my fallen items before the girls simultaneously go, "Oh," and the one next to me picks up the gun and the magazine from the ground. I tell her to give it to me, but she holds on to it. The other twin leaned way over her seat to get a good look at what her sister was holding. When I get my hand freed from the bag, the iguana keeps it tightly held in its teeth and skitters away to the seat in front of me with my bag. I ask them desperately to please give me my stuff back, but they ignored me, staring at the shiny gun. Then one twin hands it off to the other twin, and she puts the magazine and the firearm back into my backpack. I feel the bus slow down and the brakes approaching another stop. Both girls stand up like they're getting ready to leave. The one holding the iguana's leash throws my bag over her shoulder and starts to leave her tow of seats. That's when I grabbed her shoulder and said, "Wait." But as soon as I did, the other twin immediately starts crying and screaming, "You leave my sister alone, you pervert." She had real tears coming down her face as she fake pounded at my back with her fists. A few passengers turned around and see all the commotion. Someone says, "Let go of her." And at that moment, I knew it was over. The twins and the obese reptile get off the bus and run away. I still had a few more stops to sit and think about what had happened as passengers stared at me like I was a pariah. I had nothing else planned for the day, so I ended up going to school. Making that choice set off what I believe to be my final divine intervention. When I got there, I'd already missed 3 periods, and the last one hadn't let out for lunch yet, so the hallways were completely empty. And the first person I saw was a school guidance counselor. I hadn't had many talks with her before that day, but she strolled up to me, asked why my eyes were red and glassy, why I was late. I wasn't high, I'd been crying, and I asked to be in the safety of her office to continue my story. Ms. Carol Owens listened to me and saved my life that day. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't walked into that school and talked to her. She helped me get in touch with family advocates to help with my home situation and therapy paid by the state. Whether it be a series of divine interventions or luck, I was able to get the help I needed when I was at my rock bottom lowest. I can't say this enough. If you're having dark thoughts, reach out to someone, anyone. Don't give up. And if you think you've got a buddy going through something, reach out to them. You don't know how much a phone call means to someone until their number's no longer in service. Never give up on yourself or on others. Well, friends, it appears we've reached the end of tonight's episode. Thanks for joining me. Whether it's your first time or you're a regular, your support means the world. We've got brand new episodes every Friday night, and keep those eyes open for those deep sleep videos. And of course, subscribe, tap the bell, and you'll never miss a thing. Special thanks to the Darkest Hour channel members, Lori TESDAHL, Sarah Marie, Robert Bailey, COLTDADDY Eagle, MALLORY Dominguez, KARI WATKINS, PILAR TREDEN WIXSON, Larry Hill, RIPLEY, JOJO STARCHER, Mary Patrick, Debbie LAFRENIERE, Julie Bourdelais, Jennifer BECK, MARINA LACHNER, Make Hamilton Home, Evan Pratt, Mary Hineline, Katharine Yes.ImtherealKatie Isabelle, Landshark, Danielle Hecht, Veronica Mckiernan, Keziah Pietersen, and Amber Baker. Big thanks to those who shared their stories, and a huge shout out to all of our patrons: Tracy S., Mary H., Tanya F., Tamra K., Monica L., Zoe Watt, Shelley B., Donald C., Marion T., Rat Girl, Alicia S., Aaron G., Nikki H., Mr. Revenant, Naz K., Brendan G., Paul T., Nicholas C., Tony P., Lizanne, Arlene F., Adrian, T.F. Parham, Jason G., Lori T., and Bobo Jenkins. If you want to support the Darkest Hour in other ways, consider joining our Patreon or become a channel member. Check out the link in the description to learn more. Do you have stories like these? I'd love to share them. Send them to me, Amanda, darkesthour@gmail.com, or on the Darkest Hour subreddit, the Darkest Hour YT. Stay spooky.